Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Hey guys, Jared Moon here from Into 3 Fitness, and welcome to the Better Humanology podcast. Today we have Matt Vincent. He is a two-time world champion at the Highland Games, real expert on throwing and strength training sports in general. So we talk a lot about that, but he has since retired from the sport. So we talk about why he retired, working through injury and what he's doing now, which has led him to cycling and also the keto diet. So a lot of interesting topics that we cover, why you should add some sort of throwing and how to do that into your current training, how the keto diet could help you, and how he takes a very no-nonsense approach to that. And then also we do dabble on cycling if that's something that you're interested in. So without any further ado, here is Matt Vincent. All right, Matt, welcome to the Better Humanology podcast, man. Super pumped to have you here today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Humanology, that's a very exciting word.
Yeah, it's completely, the Better Humanology altogether is completely made up, but we do at least make it sound good, right?
I think so. It sounds like something I'd want to be part of.
And you are now officially a part of it. And I'm going to tie you in even more here by roping you into our challenges that we throw to every guest at the beginning. So I'm going to start with a fitness challenge for myself and everybody listening.
I think it's really easy to come up with something that's, brutal and really hard to do. But I think what a lot of people need is trying to figure out how to get started, right? And I think that is the big one. And I think consistency is really part of the challenge that I have. So my challenge is I want 2 10-minute walks outside a day.
All right.
So first thing in the morning, first thing out of bed, get clothes on, do what you need to do, get some water in you, and just go for a walk outside. And then after dinner, do the same.
I love it. It's one of those simple, not easy type things. Like it even sounds, it's easy to go on a walk, but the consistency part that you mentioned, doing that twice per day, every day, that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, because it's not hard. It's a 10-minute walk. It's a joke. It's never going to be stressful on your body. But I think it really does yield some big results. I think it gives you time to think. I think it gives you some mindfulness to kind of think about some stuff and work through some issues in your head or whatever problems you've got, or even set your intentions for the day.
I like that, man. All right, now how about a mental toughness challenge?
Mental toughness challenge. So one of the hardest workouts I ever did that slaughtered me on my 30th birthday. I'm 35 now, so I'm glad I did it then. I did, familiar with the CrossFit workout Grace?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I did Grace at body weight.
Nice.
So I did 30 reps of clean and jerks as fast as I could at 275 pounds.
Wow. That's how long did that take you?
Just over 13 minutes.
Wow, that's incredible. Impressive.
That was 13 minutes, and then I did nothing the rest of the day.
Yeah, maybe the next day too.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly, man.
That's brutal. Yeah, that's a mental toughness challenge for sure. If anyone out there, I don't know if I'm going to take it on. I might, one day. But all right, how about we're going to go with you, a movie recommendation. How about a movie recommendation?
So one of my favorite movies of all time is 28 Days Later. It's a little older. It is a film, kind of I think it's not Zack Snyder. But as far as like horror and I guess zombie genre, since they don't actually have zombies in the movie, but there's zombies. Make no mistake that's what we're selling here is the horde of consumers that can't be stopped. One of my favorite movies of all time. I love it. I think it's beautifully shot. I think the characters are great. Cillian Murphy is amazing in it. And none of the main characters or protagonists, they're never the cause of the problem. So all they are actually doing is reacting to this situation, and they never make mistakes. But, it's one of those situations where their decisions are based on neither of these two things seem like a good option, but I know A gets us killed and B might not. So we have to take B.
Right. That's awesome.
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I have not. I'm familiar with it for some reason, but I definitely have not seen it. I'm familiar with what the premise and everything, but I haven't seen it before. I'll definitely watch it. You know if I can snag that on Netflix or something?
I think so.
Okay, I'll check it out. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Now, if you could give us your background, feel free to go as far back as you need to, and then bring us up to today, really, and what you're most excited about right now.
Okay. So I guess the reason anyone should know who I am is I competed in the Highland Games for about 8 years. And during that time, I was able to win 2 world titles and have a really good time with the games. Wrote a couple books. I've done some YouTube. Prior to the Highland Games, I was a 5-year thrower at LSU with a shot put, discus, and hammer. I've competed in just about every strength sport possible. I've done weightlifting, powerlifting, both geared and raw. Had some success in both. I've competed in strongman, had some success there, but Highland Games was really my best fit. And through that, wrote a couple books, like I said, about training for Highland Games, which turned into an apparel brand that I now run full time as of year ago, March of 17. This became my sole job. And so now I do a weird variety of things that I'm not quite sure are how it is a job, but it seems to be. So that's basically it. Suffered some injuries, have done some major rehab. Injuries kind of led to retiring from sport. And now I'm here.
That's awesome, man. And congrats on going full time with something you love doing.
Yeah, we'll see how long we get to do it, but it's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so just for anyone out there who's unfamiliar, could you fill us in on the Highland Games?
Highland Games are they are a like classic Scottish heavy athletics. There's 9 events. It's all throwing based. They compete around the U.S. It's pretty easy to look up as far as Highland Games. There's some stones we throw, some weights we throw, etc. It's a really, really great sport. Anyone out there who's had a throwing background, whether that's high school or college, or you're, a strong guy, pretty athletic, I would really recommend looking into it and going out and giving it a go. It's something I really, really enjoyed competing in.
And how were you introduced to the sport?
As a thrower in college, you know it exists. Like you kind of hear about it. As some athletes do it in the off season or this and that. And I mean, we're talking about it. I finished college in 2005. And then did my first Highland Games in 2009. Yeah. And so, took a couple years that I got out of college and had got back into strength sports with strongman and ran into a Highland Game they were hosting in Jackson, Louisiana. Went and did it and really loved it. And then found more of them to do.
That's awesome. And so you're throwing, it probably didn't start at LSU. Did you start that in high school?
Middle school. So
I
started throwing shot put in middle school, and then through shot put discus through high school. Was not a very good discus thrower. And then made my way into college at LSU as a shot putter, and then continued throwing discus and hammer with some little bit better coaching, and was terribly average in all 3.
and man, you've hit everything. You said competed in basically every strength sport. What was it? I would say which one, other than throwing, would be your favorite? From strongman to powerlifting. What was your favorite?
I like training for strongman as much as any of it, and that's really what it came down to. I like training for all of it. I love the training for strongman. I like the training for powerlifting. I like the environment, and I like the kind of team setting and group setting that we were in. And Highland Games was the only one that I really loved the competition environment, which is ironic because I love the competition environment of Highland Games, but there was no training environment whatsoever. I did all of it by myself. So, as soon as I got into the actual competition environment for strongman or powerlifting or weightlifting, it just wasn't a fit for me. It was either taking itself way too fucking serious, or just trying a bit too hard to be tough.
You talking about in the competition setting of those?
Yeah, I just don't have the energy to have some guy sit in the corner and mean mug all day. Like, dude, we're in a GNC parking lot. Why don't you take it down a peg, or we're in the we're in a Days Inn conference room doing a powerlifting meet. Like, things are going to be okay, bud.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And so what I would like to do is kind of talk about throwing, some of the benefits you're training, and maybe how, other people out there could implement some of the training into their own, daily or weekly training routines, and maybe some of the benefits they could produce from it. So let's get started there, if you don't mind. What does training for the Highland Games look like? You said you're doing most of it by yourself. Yeah.
So, I mean, like any sport, right? You got to have repetition of the sport. So I threw 4 days a week, between 3 and 4 days a week, depending on time of the year and like what I was trying to accomplish, but typically at least 3. And, try to hit the events as much as I can. And then the lifting part of it was a linear progression, kind of based on what I had done in college. But, every week I'm going to make sure I'm going to hit my bench, squat, dead, over a push press, usually a power clean and a snatch. Like, as long as I was going to hit those main lifts and making progress on those lifts, everything was going to translate pretty well to throwing, as long as I'm getting the reps throwing. Like, I can't just spend time in the gym and get better at throwing. You got to actually go throw.
Right. And that's where it's different. Like, a lot of people, if people are into CrossFit or, powerlifting, like the exercising is the competition. Yeah, there's not really a skilled portion, and some people get offended saying stuff like that. But there's not really a skilled portion.
That's true.
Yeah, there's no skilled portion beyond that. Also has to be trained, but every other sport is that way. There's a strength and conditioning coach for a football team, and then there is the football coach who tells you, what to do, whether there's a throwing coach or a line coach or whatever, in every regard. And so that's a big point right there, is just the fact that you had to focus on a skill. Would that, versus as someone who's done powerlifting and strongman training, would you say that it takes a significant more time to focus on both a skill and, the physical part of training?
Well, getting stronger is really easy. Like, that's not hard.
Right.
I mean, it's not complicated. It is doing the work every day consistently so that your body adapts to it and you get stronger. It's pretty basic. Throwing, however, there's a lot of factors there. And especially, like, you reach a certain level, and anytime that I got stronger, maybe I wasn't spending enough time out throwing, and so I got a little slower. So stronger and slower doesn't yield a further mark. It yields the same mark. So the real trick is me trying to get stronger, faster, and have more efficient technique. And, nothing we throw at the Highland Games is heavy. So it's a highly technical sport. The heaviest thing we throw is 56 pounds. The caber is a little heavier than that, but that doesn't really count as a fixed weight type implement. And so, the big thing for me was trying to implement my training as in, how do I transfer power into the implement? And if I'm not proficient in my technique with throwing, it's not going to work.
Right. Having to focus on that. Now, is this something that you think other people should throw in or put in their training? Throwing?
Yeah, I think so. I think throwing would be wildly beneficial for a lot of athletes. And I think it teaches a couple things kind of the same way Olympic lifting does, but simpler. It's, neuromuscular timing. It's the ability to tell your body and coach your body to say, we have to fire at 100% speed in this order for this to work. And so, even taking something as simple, right, as let's call it a 20-pound med ball, and doing a basket toss with it, and just grab it like you're at the bottom of a clean. So hips in that position, down on the ground. And then you're going to throw it as high into the air as you can, let it bounce once, catch it, and repeat. Like, there's no way to do that slowly. That is as powerful a movement as you can make. Now, the stronger you get, the higher the ball goes. The ball doesn't have to change in weight. And that's the big difference with throwing. Like the implements are never going to change weight. You get better, they go further.
I like that.
So you're not always adding more weight to the bar. And so I think something simple like that, like a basket toss type thing, could be really beneficial, or even just an overhead throw as far as you can and repeat, especially if you've got a partner with a med ball. But there's a certain amount of trying to figure out, how do I apply force from my legs and my hips into my hands, which is why I really, really liked using the push press as one of my main lifts.
Yeah, that's and that's something I like to try and talk to athletes about. Just doing a lot of online programming, because I don't like to do a lot of snatch work or clean and jerk, just primarily because if I can't coach you in person, it's difficult to tell you to go do snatch work for the day without meticulously watching and critiquing your form. And so we do like to throw in other things like you're mentioning, throwing a med ball and stuff like that. What are some other suggestions you have for people who are looking to get started in neuromuscular timing and trying to increase the efficiency of their strength?
Well, I mean, that's how I always looked at weightlifting. I mean, training for weightlifting for me was never a max effort, because, I mean, I could always pick up more weight than I was going to be able to snatch. And so it was simply a matter of, transferring as much of my strength and power into the bar as possible.
Right.
And so, I mean, I spent a lot of time training using like a Tendo unit and stuff like that so that I could actually measure those things. Toward the end of my career, not so much, just kind of got dialed in. But man, really any type of throwing, whether that's, doing an overhead back or a between the legs forward, I think is what they're called. So taking, a smaller med ball, like one of the D balls, like the yellow rubberish balls, and, having it between your legs and then reaching back and throwing it behind you as far as you can for distance from a line, or going between your legs facing the direction you're throwing and throwing it from between your legs forward. Both of those are great tests. Like shot putters and all throwers and even sprinters and jumpers do those in track and field all the time.
And now you mentioned Grace as one of your workouts. So did you dabble into CrossFit at all, or is that just like a challenge?
Yes, I dabbled into CrossFit. But I dabbled into CrossFit in a way that I've enjoyed doing HIIT training since I was about 14. So yes, I dabbled in CrossFit.
It was just the new label at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I found a HIIT workout and decided to try it. Does that make me doing CrossFit? I don't know. Sure.
Yeah. I talked to, I think it was Dan John about this on the podcast, and because he tried, implementing CrossFit in the training for a little while, and he was just essentially like, didn't make anybody throw any further, so we don't do it anymore. And it's
no, it's not going to make you a better thrower. It's sure shit not going to make you a better athlete.
Yeah,
it makes you better at CrossFit.
Exactly, it makes you better at exercising quickly.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean, make no mistake. I mean, people still want to piss and moan about CrossFit, but at the end of the day, they've put more barbells in people's hands than anybody else ever has.
I agree. Yeah, they. I don't. I laugh at. I have no real issues with CrossFit, the sport. Anything, I actually enjoy doing CrossFit workouts periodically. I just sometimes just saying the things out loud of what CrossFit actually is makes me laugh. It's like we're exercising quickly, and that it's just that's how.
Well, I mean, you're definitely proving who's the best at exercising, right? But I mean, that's pretty much what they claim. You win and you're called the fittest on earth. That I think that's a fair title for whoever's the best at exercising.
No, I agree. Not a lot of pushback there for me. Now, tell me how you, we're going to kind of switch gears here into, I'd like to talk about the journey into what you've been doing for the last year. You said you started full time, like how, an apparel company. How did that come about?
One of the things I had wrote about in one of my training books for the Highland Games was the hate. And this is kind of a personal philosophy type thing, just about, why I push and all these type of things and what athletes I admired. And it was always the guys who I felt hated themselves more than I do, the guys that were willing to outwork me. And so that's really where the essence of the brand came. And I guess enough people had read the book at that time and were asking for me to do some shirts. And I was like, nah. And so we finally did one and sold a few. And then we took the profits of said shirts and bought more shirts to have some inventory. And then almost 5 years later, now we're selling shirts. So that's how all that started. It became my only job. So that started in October of 2014. And I got fired from my real career job in March of 17. And just luckily had enough steam under my belt to say, oh, cool, let's do this full time, or at least take a shot at it.
That's awesome. Not the firing part. Well, actually, I guess that worked out for the best, right?
I mean, man, shit happens. I had a job that I really wasn't in love with. I had a job that I could do well and that I had worked in for 10 years. But
what were you doing?
Outside sales in the petrochemical field.
Okay.
So I had a great job that paid well and had a lot of freedom. I was able to travel and compete and do all that things. It's a great job. I don't have a single bad thing to say about it other than I didn't love doing it.
And what does training look like today?
It's been tricky now that I'm retired because of injury. I switched things up and got on top of my diet, and I've shrunk down a bit from fighting weight. I competed most of the time at about 285, 290 pounds, and I'm about 240-ish now. And so training now is as much to just feel good and stay strong as I can. So right now it's pick a thing and then kind of train for it for a while. So right now I'm pretty hot on cycling.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm riding a lot, but I'm trying to ride, 120, 130 miles a week and still lift 4 days a week and lift moderately heavy. So, if I can bang out a 30-mile ride in the morning and still bench, 375 for some reps in the afternoon, I'm pretty happy with how that matches up.
That's awesome. And is there a specific cycling event that you are training for?
Yeah. I'm heading out to California the first weekend of October and doing the Grand Fondo out there. Levi Leipheimer puts it on, and I've got some friends who live in that area and know him. And so we were able to be part of it. And so I'll do a 62-mile ride through, leaving from Santa Rosa and up through a NorCal area and then back. So it probably won't be too bad. I could probably do the 100, but I'm not sure my bike's ready for the gravel section of that.
Yeah. That's 62 miles is no joke. I've done a 100-mile bike race twice now. And,
oh man, that's awesome.
But no, I'm not a competitor by any means. It's really just a finish the race type situation.
That is all I'm doing.
And
the goal is not die.
Not die. That's rule number one, right? And so how did you get involved in that? How did you get involved in cycling?
So I've been into it since college. I got into mountain biking and stuff like that in college. My first job out of college, my first job when I moved to Baton Rouge for college was at a bicycle shop. Didn't know anything about bikes at that time, just got lucky enough that I knew someone who worked at one and they could get me a job, and I didn't care what I did for a job. I just needed a job. So I did that and then finished up college, and I opened a bicycle shop with a business partner.
Oh, nice.
And so I did that for 5 years. So owned a bicycle shop and rode quite a bit. And then as realizing that it was a poorly run business, mostly due to having a 22-year-old me run it, got out of it and, eventually got back into cycling about 4 or 5 years ago. Nice.
That's really cool. And so primarily road or mountain bike that you're doing now?
Primarily road right now. It's raining here like every day for 45 minutes, so the trails are just gross.
Yeah. Where do you live?
Louisiana.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm in Texas.
Oh, nice. Where in Texas are you?
Argyle, Texas. So it's a suburb of Dallas, pretty much.
Oh man, Dallas. It's not one of my favorites.
No, it's not one of the, to be honest, the nicer parts of Texas. It's better than El Paso. That's true. It's also better than Amarillo. And Houston, but also true. People would fight me on that to some degree, but...
But I mean, you guys are both fighting over losing there.
But if you like, there's Austin and then East Texas and you know, some areas like that, they're a lot more fun.
Yeah. I mean, East Texas is okay. I don't know how much of East Texas is that great. I spent a lot of time in the Golden Triangle area, Beaumont, Port Arthur.
Yeah, getting closer to you at the East Texas, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in Lake Charles, so right there on 10, next to Texas. So.
Oh, awesome. And some cycling now, man. What's after cycling? You said you're just kind of picking a thing and going with it. What are you?
I'm really enjoying cycling right now, so I'm probably going to find another ride. I know that I've got one scheduled for next year with another group of friends, but it's like September of next year, and we're going to do like a 6-day hut to hut ride from, I believe, like Grand Junction, Colorado to Moab. So it'll be like 5 days, and you basically just ride from like a cabin to cabin. And the cabin is stocked with food and stuff like that, so you can shower and have a bed.
That sounds like a fun ride.
Yeah, it should be really, really rad. So I'm excited about that. So I'm going to try to stick with and get better at cycling for a while, set some goals and try to figure it out. Like, what do I need to do and program to figure it out so that I can add a mile an hour average to my current 20 mile an hour pace or 20 mile pace.
And how much are you training right now? And I just want to contrast this with, training for what you're doing now versus training for the Highland Games. Like, how much have things changed, if at all, training wise? And I'm talking primarily time in the gym or time on the bike.
Time on the bike's changed a lot. Like whenever I was competing and throwing, I probably wasn't riding hardly at all. But now that I got a bum knee and cycling seems to be one of the few things I can do pretty aggressively without really killing it. So cool. I can stick to doing that. But I mean, training is relatively similar. If anything, I'd probably training more now. Okay. And I'm training. It's different, right? Like because I'm competing in that other thing, I'm training efficiently and I don't give a shit about the aesthetics or any of these other type of things. My goal is throw far and be the best in the world at it. That is it. So whatever gets to that done, that was the goal. Whereas now, it's as much of how does the knee feel? How does the body feel? It seems that if I keep doing something every day, things feel a little bit better. And I'm trying to be a little bit less disgusting and fat. So that helps too.
And
I'm lifting, like I said. So I typically lift right now 3 to 5 days a week, depending on where I'm at and what my schedule looks like. If I can get in the gym, I'm trying to do it. And then I'm trying to ride, like I said, about 100 and, at least 100 miles a week.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, if you come up this way, man, there's every year it's the bike race that I've been trying to hit in recent years is the Hotter Than Hell 100. It's in Wichita Falls, Texas, 100 miles, single day bike race. It's
go right out there and go see old Rip.
Yeah, right. Hit it on the way.
Yeah, let him make fun of me for getting on a bike.
Yeah, that's what I thought is interesting because endurance versus fast twitch stuff. People.
Oh man, Jesus Christ! People are get so dialed in and attached to a thing for just go have fun. I mean, the chances are that if you are someone who's listening to this podcast and looking for some advice, there's a pretty good chance you're never going to be best in the world at a thing. That's also really okay.
Right?
Chasing that level of success shouldn't be the reason that you get into a sport. That level of success should be a side effect of doing something that you love. And so, man, go have fun. Like whether you didn't go on bike rides with your friends or whatever you want to call it, right? Like what activity did you skip out on because it was going to affect your training or something the next day, which I don't know, man. At the end of the day, it's just racking up life experiences. And I loved competing in the Highland Games, and I took it very, very serious. But, I mean, I said the entire time I did it that, I mean, none of this shit's going to make my tombstone. And so, I mean, understand how silly this whole thing is that we're doing and whatever sport it is you're competing in as far as strength goes. And fucking have some fun, man. People just get so wrapped in this. Well, I can't go do that. We've got a bench tomorrow. Like for you'll survive. Like
right.
Why are you so fragile?
And it's part of pushing yourself to those resiliency limits that I think makes you a better person.
Right. And hey man, if that's your thing and that's your passion and you want to chase it, awesome. Awesome. I just think I prefer to be a little bit more well-rounded. That's why I liked competing in everything.
And now I want to ask you, because I didn't, when you initially said it, what was it about the Highland Games actual competition that made you enjoy that more? I understand you're saying everyone else was a little bit more serious, but how did the Highland Games contrast in the competition setting?
So, for one, I mean, you're outside in a field. Like it's grass, it's green, there's sun, and it's throwing. Like I'm not dying doing Atlas stones or doing some 1,000-pound yoke. Like I'm throwing stuff, and so most of the guys who get into Highland Games, especially at the professional level, usually have had a throwing background in college or something like that. And so the mindset's already there that like we're used to the fact that no one gives a shit about us. And we're all in on the joke of how silly it is, the fact that we get to do this at all. And like, I'm not trying to convince everyone that this needs to be the next big thing on earth. Like, so we all know how great this is, the fact that we got to travel around the world and compete in a sport and get paid a few bucks to do it. So, I mean, it's a lot of ball busting. It was a lot more hanging out. There's not a ton of posturing. There wasn't any tough guy bullshit. I mean, we're out there in kilts and socks having a good time, usually drinking a beer at lunch. And so it just didn't have to be that serious. I got looked at the last weightlifting meet I did. I got looked at like a crazy person because I cracked a beer between snatch and clean and jerks.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah, I could see.
I'll be fine.
Yeah, it's just a beer. Not going to be that big of a deal.
And look, this isn't nationals. I was at some warehouse gym doing a local weightlifting meet because I saw it 48 hours before I showed up. I was like, that sounds fun. I'll go do that.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned, so you competed at 275 or 285?
I was between, at my best, I was between like 280, 290.
Okay. And now you're sitting around 240, you said?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what was the big, how'd you reduce the weight? Was it diet primarily or just changing up, more cycling? What
Mostly diet.
And so what did you do to drop the weight?
I switched to a ketogenic style diet, and I was really lucky to work with Mark Bell and some other guys that have been really knowledgeable in it and found some success. And so him and Jesse Burdick were really able to help me out. So I was lucky to have some friends there. And then, I mean, whether it's a ketogenic diet or whatever it is you want to do, at the end of the day, what I've realized doing it now for the last 2.5 years is you still got to be in a caloric deficit if you want to lose weight.
Right.
That's really all it comes down to. And so find foods you don't hate to eat that, you don't overeat. And I know me, and I know I'm a big dumb animal, and I don't really have control if it comes to cheeseburgers and chips and French fries. Like, I'm not going to eat 8 ounces of French fries. I'm going to eat French fries until there's no more French fries. So I'm better off not allowing myself those things. And so the ketogenic diet, had enough restrictions on me that I couldn't fuck it up.
And how do you find being keto cycling?
That's fine. I do very well at being fasted, or I just have a really awful metabolism. And so, I mean, I haven't eaten today, and it's really not a big deal. Me and caffeine are real good friends.
That helps for sure.
Yeah. So I'm not mad about it. It's a matter of finding out what works for you. I know my wife has tried some different dietary stuff with me, through all this, and knows that she's got to eat in the morning. Her body just gets weird if she hasn't. So.
And so was it hard for you to transition to keto at first?
Not really. I mean, I got to eat steaks and bacon. It's not the hardest transition. It's not like I got asked to eat rice cakes and, low fat meals. I mean, you mean I get all the ribeyes I want? This sounds awesome. And so, yeah, what does it look like? Let's say the daily keto for you right now. Right now, I'm now into it long enough that I'm also mixing keto with some intermittent fasting. And so, typically in the morning I won't eat until, I don't know, afternoon. So like today I haven't eaten yet, but I'm also got a cortisone shot in my knee yesterday. So I'm not really doing a whole hell of a lot. So my activity level is not terribly high. I don't need that much food. So I've really tried to learn to eat when I'm hungry. But what it looks like right now is I usually have a protein shake. Usually the first thing I'll do when I break the fast at around 11 or 12. And I usually drink one of the Monster Muscles because they're pretty low carb. They're probably a little higher carb than I should for keto, but I'm doing a lot more now as far as being on the bike, etc. And then after that, I usually follow it up with a ribeye or pork chop or some type of red meat or pork or something like that, usually with a green vegetable salad, and then kind of repeat that for dinner as well.
That's awesome. So other than weight loss, did you notice anything else when you went keto?
I don't crave as many shit foods.
Yeah.
So getting rid of all that processed stuff and carbohydrates and sugar, I think my brain operates a lot better. I'm a lot clearer. I'm a lot more driven. I don't try to fall asleep in the middle of the afternoon. Energy levels are way more maintained, less inflammation in my knee and the rest of me. So, there was a lot of positives for me for going that route with, having a more anti-inflammatory diet, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think, keto's gaining a lot of popularity and for a lot of good reasons. Do you think that it's something that you could have done when you were competing in the Highland Games?
Probably. I just wouldn't have been very good at the sport.
Yeah, so definitely could. And that's kind of my question. So you think that
I just don't think I could have maintained the body weight and eat this way.
And how were you eating when you were competing?
I just eat whatever I want.
Whatever.
I didn't eat like a total asshole, but I ate like a total asshole probably 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I drank a lot and stuff like that. So I basically don't really drink anymore, and I eat meats and green vegetables. And if it's not a meat or a green vegetable, it has to be able to be identified as a single ingredient.
I like that.
So it's hard to screw that up.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Going keto, no small feat. Any advice for anyone thinking about it out there?
Just keep it simple, man. My first recommendation is, don't get caught up in all the tracking and doing this and trying to figure out calories. Like, just take the first 2 weeks and don't eat anything that didn't have a face and isn't a green vegetable. That's it. And as far as those go, have as many as you want.
That's pretty simple.
But that's it. Those are your options.
And did you start with intermittent fasting too, or you said that's something you got into later?
Oh, that came down the road.
Okay. How do you what are you doing, like 16-hour fast?
Whatever it is, I really don't time it out. At some point I get hungry enough that I start making weird decisions, and so then I realize it's time to eat. I try to play it pretty intuitively.
Yeah, intuitive eating sounds like that's your thing. That's awesome. Listen to your body.
My body also occasionally says we're going to have a cheeseburger pizza party, and I do that as well. But that's very, very few and far between nowadays.
Yeah, and so basically no alcohol as well.
Yeah, I just don't really drink anymore. It's wasted. It's wasted calories for one. Usually my knee and everything else feels pretty donkey the day after I drink. I now at 35, I hate being hungover more than I like being drunk.
Yeah.
So I'll have a drink or two a month, but that's really about it. There's other vices to stick to.
All right, man. So I'm gonna hop into the quick fire questions of the show. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Went back and forth on prowler sprints with Windler about 14 years ago. Just happened to find myself at Elite. I was in Ohio for work, and so I went up there and trained and met Jim and became friends and finished a workout. And he was like, "I'm going to run prowler. Do you want to run prowler?" I was like, "You bet your ass I do." And we went after it for a while and watched the rest of the guys who were training with us kind of fall off and puke in garbage cans. And I think we had finished about 20 sprints, and neither one of us were really trying to stop, but that was an ugly day. I definitely lost some years on that one.
That sounds brutal, especially with Windler. He's like the hill sprint and prowler dude, and like that's that and squatting heavy like are his things these days.
Yeah, he sticks to the basics, man. I'm really fortunate to have had him as a mentor for the way I think training should be for a very long time.
That's awesome. Now, in your opinion, what's the best activity for building mental toughness?
Convincing yourself not to be a pussy. I mean, that's really it, right? Like I don't know that there's an activity for mental toughness. I think you got it or you don't. And if you're someone who quits, congratulations, you're a quitter. But that's fine by me. I mean, man, you can choose, and mental toughness, I think, is more philosophy, right? Like, I mean, you can feel woe is me, whether it's injury or any of these other things, or you're tired. But at the end of the day, like, being outworked is a choice. Like, I may not have the genetics someone else does, or have the, natural talents, or have the better day, or maybe a little sore, but being outworked, that's the choice. And that's the one that carries over to everything else I do in my life. And so, man, I'm willing to suffer. I'm willing to outsuffer you. So, I mean, learn to dig into that and understand no one gives a shit. Do it because you want to.
I think it's pretty solid advice.
Yeah. Mental toughness, go push a prowler by yourself in the morning in front of your house until you're dry heaving alone. Before there was something to post on Instagram, before any of that. No one cares. You did that because you did it, because you earned that ticket that day.
Yeah, and that should be a rule. You can't post it to social media, just for you.
Right.
All right, now if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Barbell.
That's you just ditch the bike right away, man. As soon as it gets down to having to pick it. But
barbell.
Yeah, I understand.
Everything I've ever learned, it's been good to me, has come from my hands being on a barbell. My life is a lot better if I've got a barbell in it 4 days a week. It's been that way forever. Anytime that I've gotten weird and things have strayed and I'm not quite sure on stuff, I notice that part's also not consistent.
Now, the question of the show, what is the best advice you have for becoming a better human? It's 100% open-ended, so take it in any direction you'd like.
Being a better human. It's kind of two-part. So the first part is realize the decisions that you're making. Are you making decisions on fear, or are you making decisions based on love? And so, I mean, that's love for people around you. That's wanting them to do better. That's wanting their success. Are you making decisions not from a scarcity mindset? Avoiding that mindset that there's X amount of success out there that we all have to share. Perfect example would be, something like this, man. You want to have me as a guest on your podcast? I have a podcast. Or if you wanted to sell t-shirts, are we competing?
No.
But there's people that believe that. And so avoiding that scarcity bit that, someone else succeeding somehow takes away from your possibility of success is horseshit. And so be stoked for people that are doing well. Surround yourself with people that are doing better than you. I mean, that's what I recommend for success and having a better life. Ditch that negative bullshit that comes with, well, he got to do this because, and if I would have had a better coach, or if I would have done this, like, man, you got what you got, make the most of it. And the second that you can really own your successes and failures as just being yours, you're going to be better off. The second part is, before you do a thing, or don't do a thing for that matter, ask yourself, does doing this or not doing this make me a piece of shit? Avoid being a piece of shit.
I like that litmus test right there.
Really simple. Like, for example, did I walk past the sink in my kitchen full of dishes because I thought, well, my wife will be home tonight and she'll take care of the dishes? That's a thought that makes me a piece of shit. So do the fucking dishes.
I like it. That's awesome.
That kind of applies to everything. For example, like, oh man, I did 9 of the 10 sets of squats I was supposed to do today. Is that good enough? I mean, sure, if you want to accomplish 90% of your goals. Don't be a piece of shit. Do the work.
I think I might like get that tattooed. That's awesome.
Pretty simple, man.
That's awesome. All right, Matt, man, it's been a blast having you on the podcast. What's the best place for people to learn more about you and what you're doing?
MattVincent.net has a bunch of stuff. I think it's got links to my podcast. It's got links to the brand, thehate.com. My podcast is called So. There'll be a new episode every Thursday. I think this week I've got, and I don't know if you air this relatively soon or not, but my next guest is Jordan Shallow, really, really strong guy at the Muscle Doc out in California. And I got some other episodes coming up with Hafthor Bjornsson and some other guys that I've been lucky enough to call friends. But it's been a lot of fun getting to do it, man. And I've got a YouTube channel. I think if you search Matt Vincent, but I think that's also on the mattvincent.net if you're really trying to find where all things me can at least stem from.
All
I
right.
think that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll link to your site and all that you have going on, man. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on the Better Humanology podcast.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.